if you've been around the amateur astronomy in the Houston area for any length of time, I'm guessing you probably already know Aaron Clevenson. Aaron Clevenson has been a very active part and an important part of astronomy in the Houston area. Uh, Aaron is very active in the Astronomical League and is the current secretary of the Astronomical League. He's also an observing program director and has been since 2006. And I have to say, since Aaron took that role on, the observing programs of the AL have seen a lot of real interesting updates and additions. He's the assistant webmaster of the AL and editor of the current AL observing manuals. He's the recipient of the league's C.R. Wright Award in 2014 and the Astronomical League Award of 2022. He was the author of many of the AL's observing programs, including Constellation Hunter, Galileo, AL Observing Challenges, NASA Observing Challenges, and the Master Observer Progression. I think you also were the one that put forward the eclipse observing awards as well. Aaron has earned many of the AL's observing programs as one of the AL's Master Observer Triple Crown awardees. He is a retired astronomy professor from Lone Star College in Montgomery, Texas, and having taught introductory astronomy for 18 years. He's the author of the monthly What's Up Doc newsletter and an electronic introductory textbook, Astronomy for Mere Mortals, both of which are available at no cost on the AL website. I've been getting the What's Up Doc newsletter for good 10 years, and it's a good place to start if you're planning an observing session. Aaron is also a member of the North Houston Astronomy Club and is director of the Insperity Observatory in Humble ISD. With that, I will ask everyone in the audience, please stay on mute for right now. If you have a question, please put it into the chat where everyone can see it. Once Aaron is done with his presentation, we'll ask you to come off mute and ask your question at that time. With that, I'm going to turn the meeting over to Aaron Clevenson, who's going to talk about observing programs of the Astronomical League. Take it over, Aaron.
Okay, thanks, Don. Hello, everybody. I think this is probably somewhere around my 10th time talking to you all. So yes, I'm a repeat offender. I am going to share my slides if everything works as planned. And I believe you can see it. So I actually have a two-part this evening. The first part is I want to just briefly mention the Astronomical League let's try that again. The Astronomical League Convention, which was called an AstroCon, that just happened in Bryce Canyon, Utah, which is a wonderful, wonderful venue. Not so much this year, and I'll get into that. So let me just jump into this. Well, maybe. There we go. So it was at Bryce Canyon National Park, Ruby's Inn in particular, and it just finished. It was June 25th through 28th. They had about 450 people register, and just some of the features that went on at this thing, besides the observing, obviously, was a Starbecue Gala Awards banquet, a business meeting. You know, that's certainly the highlight for everybody, right? 2 guest speakers, 6 workshops, 9 presentations, young astronomer presentations, a bunch of exhibitors. I enjoy seeing what the exhibitors have to offer every year, so that's a wonderful thing. And unlike most events, they had star parties every night. They had multiple star parties every night. And when you get up to around 9,000 feet, you're out in the desert, well away from people and most of civilization. You should have really, really perfect skies. And they were, except. So I'll get to the except. So they had an observing challenge, which was kind of cool. Bronze, you had to observe 20 things. Silver was 30, gold was 42, and star hopper, which you didn't have to do by star hopping, was 50. And in case any of you are wondering why 42, it's because 42 is the answer. Anyway, so it was a great venue, lots of good opportunity. However, there were smoke and fires. There were at least two major, I guess they're forest fires. I don't know exactly how they term them, but there were two major fires, one actually within 6 miles of Bryce Canyon. And sadly, the smoke was a real hindrance. So not as many people participated in the observing challenge as they had hoped. However, next year, Cincinnati. Now, you may think Cincinnati, not a really good place for observing, and that's true, but there's lots of other activities that they have planned, and I don't have all those details in front of me, so I can't really share them. But I hope some of you will go. I've been to a number of them now. I'm secretary, so I kind of have to go to some of them. And it's great because I get to talk to other astronomers and find out what they're doing and learn from them and pick up tips and tricks. And so it's a wonderful opportunity to do that, as well as the presentations. Okay, I'm going to just jump right into my main presentation for today. So part 2, which is observing programs. And as was mentioned, I am one of the observing program directors at the Astronomical League. And I've got all kinds of data that I'm going to toss at you, and then we'll entertain questions at the end because I'm sure I'm not going to be able to cover everything. So the first thing is our goal, this has been my goal since I was made director, was to provide something for everybody. Anybody who's interested in astronomy, we want to have something for them to do. So we have programs that do naked eye, we have some that are binocular, some that are telescope. We also have programs that go all the way from novice to expert. So even if you've been doing astronomy for 30 years, 40 years, there's still something for you to do if you feel like it. They all have certificates. They usually have lapel pins. There's a few exceptions, but very few. And if you want to think about, well, what is an observing program? The easiest way to think of it is typically it has 100 observations, and if you only work evenings, it should take you about a year to cover them because it should cover the whole sky. It doesn't take people that long necessarily, and some people it takes many years. So it depends on which program you're working on, but just lots to choose from. And as of today, there are 90 of them. So there's got to be something out there of interest. Let me dive in and answer the question, why observing programs? I have a telescope. I know the sky pretty well. I go out and observe. I can see stuff. Do I really need to have a observing program? Well, yes. I think the answer is yes. The main reason is it provides you a list of objects that are of interest to you. So you end up not wandering around without a plan. And what I found, and see this all the time when I am out observing with other folks, is they always go to their favorites. There's the top 10, right? If they're up, you got to go see them. But after that, I don't want to see the same old thing. I want to see something new. So it's nice to have these lists that I can go to that say, hey, have you looked at this one? So it's opportunities to increase your knowledge about the objects in the universe. So we have a whole bunch that are object oriented. And then there are also opportunities to increase your skills in observing those objects. And that's some of the advanced versions like Lunar 2 as an example. Okay, so another thing I thought I should mention is, what's the organization look like in the observing program division? So the president's in charge. He gets to call all the shots ultimately, but the 5 directors are the people who make most of the decisions, and they run the program day to day, basically. Underneath those 5 directors, we have 37 coordinators, and under that, we have, it's not quite 30,000, but almost 30,000 members out there, of which you guys are part of that. So we would like to see more observing programs submitted from you guys. All right, so what's the first thing? If you're going to get started, you have to decide, well, what equipment do I have available? All of us started with nothing. And then over time, we start getting binoculars, we get telescopes, we started getting, fancy filters so we can look at the sun. And many of us are using cameras to take pictures. Now, I suppose I have to take that one step further and say many of us are using automated telescopes, which I think is in one sense, cheating. But if it gets you out there observing and showing people the wonderful pictures, that's well worth it. So, first question, what equipment do I have available? Because that defines which of the observing programs will best meet your needs, at least at this time. The next thing to think about is equipment. So, well, more about equipment. So, you decide what equipment you have, then you want to pick the ones that fit into what equipment you have. And some of the other considerations are, do you like to build things? Some of our observing programs actually involve putting together perhaps radio telescopes, building an analemma gnomon, so you can actually see an analemma. Do you want to explore beyond the visible spectrum? We have radio astronomy, which is great if you want to get out there and explore and learn about a whole new piece of the electromagnetic spectrum that most of us don't think about, because we think visible. And then, do you want to contribute to science? A whole bunch of our observing programs encourage you to take what you observe, get the data, and then submit that to a national or international database where it can be used by other amateur or professional astronomers. And there's so much to see out there that the professionals can't do it all. They have to have people like us, amateurs, providing them additional information. Okay, the next question you ask after all those equipment type questions is, what kind of experience do I have? Am I a novice? Am I just starting out? If so, then the observing programs I want to pursue are going to be very different than what I'm going to pursue if I'm, let's say, an intermediate or advanced. The other considerations to think about is, do you want to become a master observer? And do you want to learn new skills? So there's things like that that you can do. And you need to think about that. What really are your observing goals? I mean, I have a simple observing goal. My goal is to see it all. I want to see everything. That's not practical. But because of that, I've pursued a whole bunch of these programs because they're different. They focus on different objects. Okay, so I need to pause here, kind of step back, and talk about the master observer progression. If we were all in a room together, I'd ask, how many of you have heard of the master observer progression? But I'm not going to do that. We have put together a process that we think people can use if they want to start out as a total novice and end up as a very knowledgeable, experienced expert. And so these are the awards that we have that are part of that. The newest one actually is the For Your Eyes Only certificate. It doesn't have a pin, but we recognize that there are people out there that haven't bought their first telescope or maybe even haven't bought binoculars yet. And we want to get them involved. We want them to have the opportunity to go out and explore and discover new things. So the certificate, part of this progression, recognizes people for observing 8 or more, well, observing was the wrong word, for completing 8 or more of the eyes only certifications. Then we get into the progression itself. So the first one is the Observer Award, and that's designed for people who are just getting started. You have to observe, you have to do 5 different programs. They're all entry-level programs designed to help you become more familiar with the solar system, more familiar with the universe, and then be able to take that and start learning some of the skills that you need. So it is telescope based. Then we have a set of Master Observer Awards. I'm going to do these out of order on the screen. The first one is the standard Master Observer Award. This award has been around for many, many, many years. In fact, when we put the progression in place, the Astronomical League leaders, the officers, said, don't touch Master Observer. So we didn't. We made a few changes, but very few. I'm going to jump down now to the bottom 2. We also, well, they're not on here. Okay. Well, I'm going to talk to 2 that aren't in here, and they should be right after the Master Observer. One of those is we have a Binocular Master Observer Award. And this is for people who have completed 8 either binocular observing programs or have done the binocular component of other programs. Because sometimes, for example, the solar system one has a binocular component that you get a certificate for, and that counts towards the Binocular Master Observer. There is also a Master Observer Award for imaging, It's called the Master Imager Award. And it is basically identical to the Master Observer, but it's designed with the imager in mind. So everything should be done 100% imaging. So those are the Master Observer Awards. Once you have one of those three Master Observers and the Observer Award, then you're ready to continue in the progression. So the next step is the Advanced Observer. Kind of sounds silly to put Advanced after Master. So think of it as an Advanced Master Observer. And the purpose of that program is to get members, observers, to go out and actually look at different types of objects. So this includes and counts things like comets, or perhaps globular clusters, or galaxies, a whole bunch of galaxy ones. So lots of options there that you can do to get your advanced observer. And then we have three levels of Master Observer beyond Master Observer. They are silver, gold, and platinum. They require more and more observing programs to be completed, and they also stretch your skills. So somewhere in here, I can't remember off the top of my head, but somewhere in here is radio astronomy. So you have to dabble in radio astronomy to get all the way up to the platinum level. Outreach, which, all of us have done outreach. Outreach is also part of that, even though it's not truly observing. Anyway, so we view the platinum one as sort of the lifetime accomplishment. And then someone, and it was not me, came out and said, well, hey, I have a Master Observer Platinum. I have a Master Observer. I have a Master Imager. And I have a Binocular Master Observer. And so those are the requirements for the Triple Crown. Yes, there are four. But the Triple Crown are the three Master Observers, plus having attained Platinum. And right now, the league has three people. Yes, I do have it, but the three people have achieved that. And it's tough because not only do you have to master using your telescope, but you also have to go out and master doing astronomy with a camera, astrophotography, and you have to pretty much master binocular usage as well. So it's a really good, it's a statement if you've reached the platinum level. Okay, let me back into my thing here. So another way to look at this is I like pictures. So pictures worth 1,000 words. So this is it. For Your Eyes Only is pretty much out there by itself. Yeah, they're part of the other observing programs, but it's not part of the progression per se. You can pursue the Binocular Master Observer Award or any one of these top three. So you can get a Master Observer Award without getting the Basic Observer Award. Because remember, we couldn't touch it, right? So we had to leave Master Observer the same. So there's a Master Imager that works the same. But if you do one of those plus the Observer Award, then you can continue on to the Advanced. And yeah, it's a little bit different for imagers, only because there are some things that require imaging and some things that you can't do with imaging. So anyway, then you move up to Silver, Gold, Platinum, and then, of course, our new Master Observer Triple Crown, which means you have to have done all kinds of stuff. Okay, and this is out there on the Astronomical League website. Up at the top of the page, there's an observe. If you click on that, I mean, you can hover over it and it'll bring up some options, but if you click on it, it brings you to a page where this flowchart actually exists. Okay, so what am I going to do? Well, let's say you want to do naked eye. So this is a list. I'm not going to list them all, but this is the list of the naked eye certifications. It should be fairly complete. And some of these are actual observing programs, such as alternate constellations or the two Constellation Hunters. Some of them are not observing in the same sense, like analemma and astronomy before the telescope. Well, I guess that is observing, actually. But there are also other ones that you would do naked eye, such as meteors, I gotta make sure I say this right. Space weather is another one of the ones. That's a new one, started last year because we wanted to make sure people got out there and enjoyed the solar maximum. So it's not too late. It's still going on. And that one requires you to actually build a magnetometer, which is kind of cool. It's a soda bottle magnetometer. So piece of cake. I think mine costs about $10 total to construct, not counting the Diet Coke. Anyway, And then there are some that are parts of other programs. So Galileo can be done, uh, parts of it can be done visually. Same thing with Lunar. And so there are, for your eyes only, components that you can do get certified, and those count toward the 8 as well. Excuse me. Okay. Well, what about binocular? These are all standard observing programs with a few exceptions, such as uh, what's the example I want to use? Like solar neighborhood or solar system. Those contain a binocular component, but they also contain telescope components. So there are certificates for partial completions. And I'm not going to go into those. We'll just move on. Telescope collections. Here I have to do a shout out to Amelia Goldberg. The last one on that, I think it's the last one, Universe Sampler, was written by her. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong, by the way. Anyway, so someone in your club actually wrote one of these, and it's a wonderful program. Uh, so I encourage you, if you haven't done it, to give it a try, because it's got lots of really great objects, and it's designed to introduce you to the field, get you out there and, learning the basics, learning the types of objects you can look at. The rest of these should, for the most part, be fairly familiar names: Caldwell, Galileo, Herschel, Messier. In addition to that, though, we have some new ones. So we have a Bennett observing program. And the way to think of that is Messier for the Southern Hemisphere. So he was in South Africa, I believe, if I have it correct. And he came up with this list. And we don't like to just put new lists out there just because somebody came up with a list. But we felt it was appropriate to cover the Southern Hemisphere, which you can't do Messier if you're in the Southern Hemisphere. The Banbury 600, another Southern Hemisphere nod. This one is a list of 600 objects. It was created by somebody in Australia. And it has a certificate. It does not have its own pin. There was too much overlap with other programs, so we didn't give it its own. But lots of collections out there. So if you don't want to focus on something like globular clusters, this is an opportunity to go out there and try a whole bunch of things, and then maybe decide, okay, I really do like open clusters or something else. Then there are, I mentioned advanced observer. So there's a whole bunch of things related to types of objects. The two in red are two new ones. They were both approved this year. Again, we cheated. We were doing space weather last year as well. But this year at the council meeting at the AstroCon, they did approve planetary transits as well as space weather. Most of these are types of objects you probably are familiar with, so I won't dwell on those. Planetary transits are extrasolar planetary transits. So it's a chance for you to detect extrasolar planets, planets orbiting other stars. It's really cool. That's one I have not done yet. It's not for the faint of heart. The only way that I can think you can do it is with a camera. You've got to do astrophotography. And it's got to be something where you're taking quick pictures because you want to know exactly when the star dims and then gets bright again after the planet has finished its pass. And they're not always very big. It's often very tiny amounts of dimming. So it's a real challenge. But I do know people who are doing it, have done it, are not having any problems, and it's on my list. I put galaxies in as their own category just because, in my opinion, we have way too many galaxy programs. So there's a whole bunch of programs out there designed to get people looking at galaxies. And it's cool. They all have their own particular draws of why you would want to do that particular program. But for me, I find most galaxies to be faint fuzzies. And I can only handle so many faint fuzzies at a time. So I like the opportunity to do the other programs as well. And then we have special projects. So these are the ones that are weird. So for example, some of these are observing programs, Analemma, Lunar and Lunar 2, those are pretty normal. NEO, those are near-Earth objects. So it's called Target NEO officially. And it's a great opportunity to go out there and uh, identify, not discover, mind you, normally, but to identify and get enough data on a particular, they're typically asteroids, so a typical asteroid that you can then send that in. It goes to NASA. Actually, it goes to, I think, the University of Arizona for NASA, and they do all the number crunching, so you don't have to determine its orbit, but they can determine its orbit if you give them three really good data points. There's some other ones out there that are much more difficult. Occultations is a good example of one of those. It's really, really tough. And normal occultations, if you think about it, the moon goes in front of stars all the time. So lunar occultations are easy. And asteroids go in front of distant stars all the time. So that's pretty straightforward. The one that I found most difficult in that one was you had to do a grazing occultation. And that you have to jump through hoops to get that one. You have to be in the right place at the exact right time and within, I believe it's feet of where you think you ought to be to get a really good graze. And what that is the star goes along the edge of the moon and it blinks out every time it goes behind a mountain on the edge of the moon. It is really, really cool. Anyway, I digress. So there's lots of other projects out there that you can do with your telescope, different observing programs. And then we have special observing awards. So we make a distinction between our special observing awards and observing challenges. And the distinction is a special observing award will have a pin associated with it. So we try to do this for special events, things that are basically once in a lifetime. The Venus transits, we've done two Mercury transits as well. I don't know why one of them is missing. We did the solar eclipses, and of course, a couple of those are missing as well. But we do those. And so those are events that we want people to get out there, observe. They always contain some kind of an outreach component, but it's pretty straightforward at this point. So lots of things you can do there. We do have actually one of these special events out there right now we've been waiting on it for over a year, and that is the T Corona Borealis Nova, which is supposed to happen every 80 years. And I get a kick out of the astronomers who say, well, actually, the last one I saw said it's going to happen on, and I don't remember the date, this date. And if it doesn't happen on this date, it's going to happen September 27th or something like that. You can't predict when these things are going to happen like that. I think that's really putting your neck out to be a professional astronomer and make a claim like that. Anyway, then we do observing challenges. We have astronomical league challenges. Those are based on solar system objects. And we have NASA observing challenges, which are based on space missions. And so I've got the NASA ones up here. These are a few of them. We have a really big one going on right now. It's the Hubble's 35th anniversary one. It's been going on since January. It's a toughie too, but for a different reason. Weather is the problem with this one. So each month you have to observe four either Messier or Caldwell objects of NASA's choosing. And then you're supposed to compare what your image looks like. So it has to be imaging. What your image looks like compared to NASA's image. And, let's be real, okay? They're Hubble images. So sometimes, yeah, they look familiar. Usually either their picture is zoomed way in or it's off at a funny angle, so you're not getting the whole thing. And it's kind of odd. But that's going on. There's a certificate available for each month and and deadlines. But for people who have started at the beginning and are continuing to the end, there will also be a pin from NASA, which is kind of cool. And then sort of the last on the pile here are we do have downloadable certificates, and we would like to encourage you to use these if any of them are appropriate. Just some of them obviously are history, like Comet ISON, and the Venus Transit. Those are history, but there's a really nice Messier certificate that's updated and available each year. There's a Herschel Hustle. I can't give you the exact numbers, but apparently William Herschel had a night at his telescope where he observed something like 75 galaxies. And so we have recognized that and offer to you if you pick the right time of year, you can do the exact same thing he did because his telescope, he just moved up and down in altitude. It was fixed azimuth. So this was as stuff was going across his field of view. He just kept going up and down, picking up galaxies. Amazing. And then there's just a general one, my first telescope observation that you can use. Feel free to share it and pass them out at events where you've got people looking through telescopes. Okay, I'm talking too fast, apparently. If you would like more information about the observing programs and awards, it's available on the Astronomical League website /alphabetic observing. I didn't make that up, somebody else did. /. Um, you can also navigate to it from the homepage by going through observe and show me all the alphabetical listing. Or feel free to email me. That's part of what I do is answer people's queries and questions. So if you have anything you want to know, just let me know. And you can do that by sending me an email direct. And just so you all know, our plan, and I'm about done, Don. Our plan is we'll answer questions. We've got a good bit of time here, so we can do that. But any we don't get to, I'm on your list server, so I will go ahead and get those questions that we don't get to and make sure that I get them out answered on your list server. Back to you, Don.
Okay, thank you, Aaron. I'm going to start it off real quick, mostly because I'm primarily an astro imager. I noticed a couple of years ago that there's an awful lot more that you can do in terms of observing clubs through imaging. How could you kind of give us an idea how well that's caught on? Are there a lot of people that are taking advantage of that, or just sort of an overview of that?
Right. So I don't have any exact numbers, but I can tell you what my observation is. We made a concerted effort, this was a number of years ago, to say we need to be appealing to our imagers, like Don. And so I am not one of those. I do image and know how to image because of my work at the observatory, but that's just not my thing. I've seen some wonderful pictures you guys do, and it's awesome. And my life's too short to spend all that time to get one perfect image. So it's just not for me. I'm the kind of guy who does science where I get 10 images, and that's more than enough to stack. Anyway, um, so we made the effort to implement imaging everywhere, or at least everywhere we could. So there are some that are still not imaging, like Messier. Messier is manual, you can't use a go-to telescope, and it's visual, you can't do imaging. Um, and that's because of the intent of the program. So they said we want to keep this the same. We do, however, have an imaging Messier observing program. So if you're an imager, so you can progress through the master observer progression, we basically it's the same thing, but came up with the imaging version so that people can do that. Um, the clubs, or they're not clubs, the observing programs that I maintain right now don't do imaging. The only one that I have is Sky Puppy. That's for the kids who are 10 and under. And as a result, they're not doing imaging, so I don't have any direct information. Although I have access to it, I just don't know it. But I know a lot of people were very happy that we were, treating imagers like the rest of us. So um, I don't have an answer for you,
Oh, well,
sadly.
that's fine. I mean, that's one of those things that maybe we can follow up on. And I'm gonna ask Renee. I'll get to you in just a second, but I'm gonna ask Matt to come off mute and ask his question as well,
Oh yeah.
because imaging
So
related.
can you hear me?
Yep.
Yep.
Yep. Awesome. Yeah, it's kind of on that same topic. So I was looking through a couple of those programs, and they're pretty massive, right? Like 100 targets. That's a lot of a lot of work, of course. But what I found is that they're not very suitable for people living in a light polluted area. So I was wondering if there was a program or maybe like a certain level that you could reach just with narrowband images. So think about H-alpha filters, sulfur, so that you can take that from Bortle 9, Houston downtown, and make some at least maybe like the bronze level or so before you have to go after the broadband targets.
So I'm not downtown Houston, so I'm not at Bortle 9. I don't actually know what my Bortle scale is out here. I'm in Humble, but it's probably 6, maybe
Uh-huh.
worse. Um, and it's not as satisfying as having pristine skies. That's true for visual as well. Um, but I've been fairly successful doing imaging here. So again, I'm not in Houston, but if you guys go
Mhm.
out to your dark site, you should be able to have pretty decent skies that you should be able to do these. If you could send me an email with some very specific suggestions, not the general concept, I got what you were suggesting about the concept, but about things that might be suitable, we'll look into it.
Awesome. Thanks.
Renee, you want to come off mute? I think you've got something to add on this question here.
I sure do. And it occurs to me after you guys going first. I'm just going to read this. Aaron, you have a lot of objects that are no longer accessible to the backyard observer. In my case, my older eyes, and I haven't gotten LASIK surgery yet, I can't even reliably see objects from our club's dark sky site. And tongue in cheek, I'm asking, what about a Master Astro Tourist Award? Because I do have to go far and wide in Texas in order to see a lot of these items. But the real question is our AP SIG, our astrophotography SIG, is just hopping all the time with things that people are seeing from their apartment balconies. I mean, like from downtown Houston almost, Stephen, and from Galveston, and Don and Matt, and everybody has these wonderful pictures that they're able to get. The only experience I have with this is I wrote a club observing program called the HAS Texas 45, and after a few years, one of our Chris Ober, our observatory director, he tooled it to be an HAS 45 astrophotography, and some of the objects are different, and the requirements are different. And we have had people who have gotten the award and the pin. So I just think, Don, I can see you. I mean, if you could just gather people up, and say, hey, what would the Messier list look like if there were an award for imagers? Although I think you should keep Messier visual. You just got to know the sky is a basic thing. But even so.
Sure. Having said that, I'm aware that with the smart scope boom that's going on, one of our newer members, Mike Hooper, I think is if I remember correctly, actually did a smart telescope Messier marathon this last March. So I mean, that there is the possibility of being able to do some of this with smart scopes or with automation as well. So anyway, well, I think there's a discussion we can take offline with Aaron after the meeting, via email, etc., with some ideas along that lines. And
we are always looking for newer opportunities of things that we can add to make the hobby for our members more accessible. And so, you've pointed out some things that are problems. That's great. I'm also very much interested in what your solutions to some of those problems were. And so I want to hear about this. And, we will take it and run with it and see what we can come up with.
Honestly, one of my biggest problems is that every time I work on the Herschels visually, something gets in the way, and I got to go run and do something with my imaging. So I haven't made a lot of progress, but that's a me problem, not with the program.
Well, that or weather. Weather's
Or
what's
weather.
getting me.
Yeah.
But anyway, no, seriously, all of you, if you've got suggestions along these lines, I want to hear about them, and we'll discuss and see what we can do.
Okay. Are there any other questions out there? That's the last one that was in the chat. All right. With that, thank you very much, Aaron. We really appreciate your sharing your expertise with us, and more to the point, you've been so active in astronomy much higher level than just here in the Houston area. We really appreciate all that you do, and to make the hobby a better experience for all of us. So
Well,
thank you very much, sir.
You're most welcome.
Yes, thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you very much, Aaron. With that, we'll go ahead and wrap it up. Next month, our novice meeting will be on August 7th at 7 p.m. General meeting is on August 1st at 7 p.m. Be sure to visit us, the website, for registration details. And be sure to keep in touch with us on the socials, as you see on the screen there. And again, if you need any further information about the club, please contact info@astronomyhouston.org. And with that, I wish you all clear skies and good night.